Welcome back, Fong. We'll be continuing our learning of iPhone programming and focusing our attention right now on table views. So table views are the mechanism by which you can scroll through the lists of the data. You've probably seen that on the iPod application where you can scroll through the music. And we're going to be learning about how to load up the data there on that table view. And let's get started. So we'll be opening Xcode. Oh, let me get the screen sharing working. Okay. All right. So we'll be creating a new, a new project. Okay, single view application. And we'll call this table top colleges, because the data we'll be displaying is top ranking colleges. No use of storyboard, iPhone. Next. We'll create our application. And here we have the nib file. And what we'll do first is we'll drag on a table view. And that's the table. We're searching for table here. And then we'll be dragging on the table view into the nib file. Just like that. So it's like dragging and dropping on components. And it's not table view controller, but it's table view. That's what we drag in. Now, similar to the picker view, we need to assign this table view's delegate and data source. And we're going to assign that to the file's owner. So we make sure we're there. We make sure that we have that table view selected using the jump bar. Then we go to the outlets inspector, and then there we can see data source and delegate. They're not connected to anything. So we're going to drag that onto file's owner. So both of those guys on the file's owner. And there we're in a way kind of giving the job of the delegate data source of the table view to the file's owner, which is a view controller. Now this view controller is now sort of given the job of being, the delegate. So let's update that and say, okay, this view controller has to implement the required methods of the UI table view data source and the UI table view delegate. And notice a code sense is helping to complete that. All right, so now these commands here, they provide the instructions or delegate protocols. They provide the instructions of what need to be implemented in terms of the implementation of the methods of the UI table view. So it's a protocol. That's what it is. It's a protocol, not a command, but it's a protocol. It's a protocol for the UI table view data source. Now let's take a look at that protocol document. So here we see some tasks, and we see, okay, this cell for row at index path is required. Number of rows in section is required. So we're going to have to implement those to get this working. Now actually we should see that there's going to be an error, because if we try to compile at this point, because it's not implementing those required methods, let's see if we can see that. So we go to build, and then we go to implement, and then we go to compile. And then we see, okay, this cell for row at index path is required. Number of rows in section is required. So we're going to have to implement those to get this working. Now actually we should see that there's going to be an error, because if we try to compile at this point, because it's not implementing those required methods, let's see if we can see that. So we go to build, and it should give us an error message. Oh, oops, didn't. Let's try to run it. Maybe there's an error message at that point. Okay, it's loading up the iPhone simulator. Ah, we did get an error. Okay, the error is right here, and here's the error message. Unrecognized selector sent to instance. Yeah, number of rows in section. So this is one of those required methods that's not implemented. So that's giving us a clue that we need that required method to be implemented to get this to work. Now, we go back to our project navigator. And now we did see in the organizer window here in the documentation that these guys are required. Now we could, of course, go to that discussion about self-arrow index path, copy this just like that. But let's use an alternative method, which is opening up the delegate protocol header file, or the header file for the UI table view. Take a look at that. And we can see that it's talking about protocol here, the delegate protocol. These guys are required. So it's actually really nice because in the when we go to the header file, it'll nicely lay out the required methods, and we could just copy it directly from here. So let's go ahead and copy that, and then we can go to the implementation file for that view controller and just paste it in. So it needs to be in between the implementation and the end point. So we can just paste it in directly from that header file. So we'll delete out the comment to make it easier to read. And because it's an implementation method, it needs to have the brackets. It's not just declaring those methods, but it's implementing those methods. So now this method needs to return an integer that we can see that needs to return an integer, and it's number of rows in the section. Now, how many rows are in the section? Well, it's going to be based on the data. And actually this project needs the data. So it needs the data of what's going to be displayed there on that table view. And let's go ahead and drag in the data. So the data is in a plist. So I'll actually just open up this plist just directly. And you see it's kind of like a spreadsheet where it's this key value pair. And data in that sort of structure is known as a dictionary or an NS dictionary in Objective-C. And in other languages, sometimes it's called a hash, or PHP, it would be called like an associative array. But here in Objective-C, it's called an NS dictionary, a dictionary. So the key here is needs to be unique. There cannot be a repeat in the key, but the value, it could be repeated different values. Like, let's say Duke was located at Stanford here. You both say Stanford, California. But in fact, actually, these are unique values as well, but it doesn't need to be. And so what is this data? This data lists college names, university names in the US, and then the city where those colleges are based. And in fact, this is a ranking of the best colleges, the top ranking colleges in the United States based on the US News and World Report. And if you're curious, you can see this data here on the U.S. News website. So Harvard, Princeton. Yeah, these are the best universities in the USA, exactly. Based on a criteria of ranking that they describe. But it's like, student to faculty ratios. It's like number of Nobel laureates maybe, or I don't know, you could see for yourself how they rank it. But Harvard, Princeton, Yale, just like we saw in that list. And this P list is quite simple to make. There's nothing special about it. And actually, if I wanted to, I could just create a new P list. See file, new file, and then we go down here to OSX resource property list. Next, and we could, just have this. Here, this is what we want. So, we could simply just start filling in data where key, so say Stanford, California, then Harvard, Cambridge, Massachusetts. So it's just as simple as that. We could just type it in, but I happen to have created this plist already. So I'll go ahead and delete this guy. And we'll just take from the desktop the plist that I already created. And we don't need that to be displayed there. So we could just go here to the desktop, and then drag in this plist of the top ranking colleges over here to the supporting files. And we'd like to copy in the this file here. So now we have available the data. So this data is now available as a plist within our project. And well, at some point we want to load it. But before we do load it, I like to kind of make a set of dummy values. So with the table view, and then we'll load in the real data. So let's let's just say the number of rows is 20, for example. This is just some dummy data to kind of get things going. And then sell for row at index path. Now the way we do that is we need to UI table view cell. We need to create or allocate a new cell. UI table view cell alloc init with style. UI table view cell style default. This is an enumeration of different styles available for the table view. Reuse identifier. We'll just call that cell. So that reuse identifier is how a cell can be potentially reused as we scroll up and down on the view of the table view. Now what's going on here? So we just allocated space and memory for this cell. It's a UI table view cell, and we initialized it with a particular style. Now we have that cell in memory, and the big picture is this method is going to be called for each of the rows that's being displayed here. So we allocate space for a new cell, and then let's go ahead and just return that cell and see what happens, because that's what this method wants to do. It wants to return cells. And there should be 20 of them. And so, in other words, this method will be called 20 times and return 20 cells. And at this point, it should be kind of empty. So let's try to run the simulator and see if it's looking like it's on the right track. Okay, that's looking like it's on the right track. So you can see these lines that distinguishes the cell. And let's put in some dummy text initially. So we'll say cell what is it? Text label? Yeah, text label text. And if you want, you can look up the references, the documentation for the UI table view, but basically this text label is a property of cell. And text is a property of the text label. Or, yeah. And so let's just give it a literal string here. iPhone. Okay. And that should load up the text into every one of those cells. And we'll run that. There we go, iPhone. And what do you know? It's got 20 of those guys. Yeah, you got it. iPhone. Okay, so now we're loading it up with this kind of dummy data. Now we want to load it up with the college ranking data. So just a list of these colleges. How are we going to do that? So one thing is we need a place to store that college data. And the place where we're going to store the college data is in the NS dictionary property. So we'll say we're in the header file, non-atomic strong NS dictionary colleges. Okay, so that creates the NS dictionary of colleges. And now, actually, to make our life easier, we want to have a array of just the college names, like in other words, the keys. You can see on the left side here of the plist that these are the keys. So we say property non-atomic strong NS array colleges keys. And once we load up this NS dictionary, the colleges, pulling out the college keys will be a simple command. So that's where the data will be stored. And we, again, don't need to synthesize. We can just dive right in. So let's go in the implementation file. And remember this, both of these methods, these required methods are containing dummy data right now, so we'll need to fix that later. But in the viewDidLoad method, that's going to be a good place for us to load up the college's variable. So we access that by saying self colleges. Okay. Now that's going to be in a minute. We actually need a string to the file path. We say string my file path. Okay. And in order to get the file path, we have to use this sort of awkward NS bundle main bundle path for resource method. And I apologize for that. It's so awkward to pull it out, but we then identify the file name, top ranking colleges, okay? And it's type plist. Close it off. So that's how we retrieve our file name. Okay, Now, once we have our file name, and actually, if you want, we can do an nslog to see what that's looking like. So we'll just print out a string, file path, and then remember we have to do the %@ sign, and this is where we can input the variable. Okay, close that. So once we run and build, then it's going to print out to the console file path null. Ooh, so we did something wrong. Oh, we got the spelling wrong. Yeah, missing E exactly. Let's try again. Good thing we did our iterative checking. Okay, hey, there we go. There's the file path. So you see, it's this like really tricky file path, but we never would have guessed that there's this application ID here. So we need to use the ns bundle main bundle method in order to retrieve the file path, because the iOS has a funky way of storing documents here. But now we've got the file path. So we're going to load up that college variable by calling self colleges. Okay, and this is an NS dictionary. So we'll say NS dictionary. We need to allocate space, and then we're going to initialize it with contents of file. So this is where we put that file path. And so you can see the file path gives us the location of that file, and then this method in NS dictionary allows us to create the space and initialize it with the contents of that particular file path. And if we want to be, sort of careful about how we're proceeding, we can also do an nslog and simply, how to do this? Okay, and then %@, okay, and then self colleges. So let's make sure it's really loading in the NS dictionary. Aha! You can see it's doing it. So I told it to nslog, in other words, print to the console the contents of the dictionary, and you can see that it's doing it. Brown is a key. Providence, Rhode Island is the value. Stanford University is a key. Stanford, California is the value. So it is pulling into memory the data that we want. That's great. We'll go ahead and nslog, comment out those guys. Now let's load up the keys. So this will make our life easier on some of the programming later on. Keys. Okay. And we simply use a method available to us within the NS dictionary, colleges, all keys. What that does is it just pulls out the keys and makes it and returns an array, and it's now available easily as one of these class variables. Okay, so it's probably working fine, so we'll just move forward. So we now have our NS dictionary available to us and the keys in an array. And so up here is where we want to start customizing so that it's no longer this sort of template Haiphong, but instead it's actually appropriate for the data. So how many number of rows in the section? Well, that's going to be based on the number of colleges. So self colleges count. Okay, and let's go ahead and run that. It's probably going to be just fine. All right, there we go. Okay, so it's now counting the number of colleges in our P list. So it looks like about 20, 25 or so. And then creating rows and cells for each one of those colleges. There's sort of a space for the college. Now, instead of saying Haiphong, what we want to do is we'll just comment that out, and we'll be pulling out the college name. So string college name, and we'll simply use the college keys array. Self college keys. Object at index method. So this is a method on the college keys array. So that's available. You can look it up in the documentation for NS array. And we'll be using the index path dot row. So that tells us what row we're on in the table view. And you can see index path is passed in as an argument. That's why we have it available. And this line is going to return the college name. And then we take that college name and set it to the text label. And now we'll run that. There we go. Got it. What's interesting is it's not maintaining the order. Notice it's starting out at Cornell, Duke. Yeah, you see Harvard, Princeton. So it's not maintaining the order. Okay, that's interesting. So really this isn't a pure ranking like one by one, but it's just a group of the top rankings. Okay. So I think that does it for this part of the video.